Happy Friday, folks. We're getting really close to the NFL draft, and this video is about the Detroit Lions draft rumors surrounding the draft. We're going to talk about Brad Holmes, what he spoke about, what that means for the draft, as well as 5 players the Lions potentially could trade away. We're going to get into the YardBarker article, talk about the 5 players. Aaron Rodgers gets owned by Aaron Glenn. That is great. And the SB Nation projected pick for the Detroit Lions at 28. But before we get into today's video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to be live for the NFL draft. It's going to be a great time. Let's get into the selection for the Detroit Lions with the 28th pick from SB Nation. And they have the Lions selecting Nick Scorton, edge from Texas A&M. A lot of the pass rushers got taken away in this draft. Jameson Williams was up there near the top 10. It just was getting savage with pass rush. If you look into any sort of draft, mock drafts, or if you look into anything in regards to that situation, Nick Scorton is always projected to be there at pick 28. From what I've seen, he's always there in every draft. So look, if the Lions lose out on players, edge rushers, maybe they covet over Scorton. We don't know, right? We don't know exactly the thought process, what they're doing. He absolutely could be a selection with the 28th pick, and so I totally understand why they did this here, because he is exactly what the Lions need at pass rush. With that said, again, just because, mock drafts are saying this or anyone else is saying this, it doesn't mean the Lions are actually going to draft Nick Scorton or going to draft an edge at all with the 28th pick. Brad Holmes, he's all about getting what he believes is their selection. So just because teams have a grade or Mel Kiper Jr. has a grade doesn't necessarily mean that Brad Holmes has got a grade. But I got a question for you. What side of the ball should the Detroit Lions draft with the 28th pick? Put O for offense, D for defense. Can't wait to hear what you guys think. Now, DetroitLions.com and Brad Holmes, they talked about things in the NFL draft, and here are some takeaways and questions that we had towards the NFL draft, and I think that we can answer a lot of these. Have the Lions gotten any phone calls with the 28th pick? According to Brad Holmes, that has not occurred right now. Doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It's just right now. This is clearly a team that's at the end of the draft, and teams right now, when they're doing trades, it's predominantly the ones that you would expect, right? The top 10 or teams that are in that situation, not the 28th pick. I'd expect calls to happen as the draft is going on. Remember, teams are looking for a quarterback. That's when, if you see one fall, whether it be Shedeur Sanders or Dart or whatever, that could be a spot. Why does Holmes really that he never drafts for positional need? Well, because he always doesn't draft for positional need. He's just doing the BPA. But I think he does BPA except with positional need. So say the best player is an edge or whatever, that's what they would draft, right? Speaking of moving up, could Holmes take a similar leap? Well, they could from the Jameson Williams type. They absolutely could trade up. Now, Holmes talked about this a little bit in his press conference. If he feels that there's a player that he absolutely likes, he's just going to go ahead and draft that player. He'll go up there and make a trade. He's tried to make trades before. It's happened sometimes, and it happened it's not. Of course, he's going to make the phone call. He's an aggressive GM. What does Holmes think of this year's pass rush class? He really likes the pass rush class. Is deep. Now, he's not just saying that, just say that, because last year there was a lot of positions that he didn't really like, and I agree with him, right? But this year, the defensive line is extremely deep, so they don't necessarily have to take a pass rusher with the 28th pick. That's why they do BPA. The show is sponsored by Game Time, the #1 app, the best app, the app that I want you guys to get. It has so many great features, specialized in last-minute deals, and saves up to 60% when buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy shows, theater. It don't matter. They have Game Time picks, making last-minute ticket buying easier than ever by quickly highlighting the best seats in the stadium. And there are so many events going on right now, whether it's concerts, baseball, Tigers, hockey, NBA, all that. And the best part, Game Time is right there. The prices is right there for you, so there's no hidden fees at checkout. Also, it's the lowest prices guaranteed. So if you find tickets that is cheaper on a different ticketing app service in the exact same seat, same row, same everything, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Go see the Tigers. Go see the Red Wings. Go see the Pistons. Go see anybody that comes to Detroit in concerts this summer. So get started today. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. If you plug in Chat Sports, you're going to get $20 off your very first purchase. Again, you go to the redeem code section, you plug in Chat Sports to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms that apply. You have to create an account. You got to have an email to save that money. The link is going to be in the comment section and description of this video. So if you're buying Lions tickets or any tickets this year, make sure using Game Time. Download Game Time today. Put in CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Last minute tickets and lowest prices guaranteed. All right, let's go ahead and continue to talk about the questions that we can answer here about the NFL draft for Brad Holmes. And we're talking about, are the Lions in a position now to take another prospect and not expected to contribute right away? This is like the Giovanni Manoop selection, and they are. They 100% are in that spot. Why is that? Because our depth is great. And they could take a project player. They could probably do it every draft the way that they have been drafting. And Holmes will do that. If they feel that there's a player you could take a chance on later in the draft, you do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Has Holmes had time to reflect back on all of his 6 Pro Bowlers he's selected in the draft last 4 years? Basically just trying to, tell him that he's a great drafter. How has he looked back on the work that he has done? This is his job, and he's expected to do these type of works, and he's expected to find Pro Bowlers. That's why he has been hired. So he's not going to sit there and probably pat on the back. He's just going to continue to do his job. Is Zadarius Smith still joining the roster before the 2025 season? I think that potentially he will. Again, I told you when he was in Detroit at the Pistons game, don't look into it. You're going to have to wait until the NFL draft. Subscribe to the channel, folks. We're going to be live for the draft. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. Let's go ahead and continue on here with a couple more. And it says, what is the biggest lessons Holmes has learned from his previous 4 years running the Detroit Lions? Well, he has learned that Lions fans, they have a particular way. We want a specific outcome, but it doesn't mean that's going to happen that way. He just continues to do BPA, and he's going to continue to do the track record that he has been doing. There's nothing wrong with that because it has absolutely been working specifically in the draft. And so, like I said, man, get your popcorn ready for the draft. We don't know what's going to happen. And anybody tells you that we're sit there and they're going to know exactly what they're going to pick is lying. We don't know. We have no freaking idea. Now, an article keeps talking about Amik Robertson getting traded, and Detroit Jock City said this is the reason why. It says Robertson has posted a career-high overall grade of 64.7 according to Pro Football Focus, but his coverage grade slumped 62.2. He also struggles in the slot where he allowed 1.61 yards coverage snap, where he had the 6th highest among 42 qualifying cornerbacks last season. This isn't a problem as terms of players with different spots, but it's problematic when Robertson's 287 snaps slot were 19th amongst all corners last season. This is also a problem with Robertson play warranted 1.957 validation last season, according to Over the Cap. This wasn't an issue with the $2.85 million cap a year ago, but it calls for a significant step up as the number jumps to 6.4 this season. Yeah, okay. Trading Amik Robertson is a dumb decision. And the reason why it's dumb is because we are in a win-now mode. You trade Amik Robertson, you're focusing that Ennis Rakestraw is going to be that guy. Injuries happen, we're in a world of hurt. We have the money to keep him. $6.4 million for Amik Robertson, and what he does in the field is not much. We need him. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. To trade away a player like that is just, in my opinion, not smart. It's not a good franchise move. You got to have depth all around, and that requires keeping some good players, even if their contract's a little bit high. We can't just be completely conservative, or I live in Holland, Michigan. You can't be completely Dutch at the cap. You got to be able to pay some players because, and look, if you start doing this, you're trading away players you just pick up in free agency the next year, and you do stuff like this consistently, it's going to hurt your free agency as well. People are going to start seeing that. And so we have to be smart all around. I do not believe they trade Amik Robertson, in my opinion. I just don't believe it's going to happen. I think it's not the smartest idea in the world to do something like that. We're going to go through other players here in a little bit that could be on the the trade block for the NFL draft. They've selected 5 players. We're going to go through that list and give you my thoughts. But again, make sure you subscribe as we're going to be live for the draft. Before we get into that list of 5, let's talk about Karen Rodgers and Aaron Glenn. Karen spoke to the Pat McAfee show. She said, "So we sit down in the office, and I think we're going to have his long conversation. I've flown across the country in 20 seconds. He goes in, literally, I'm talking to GM about something, and Glenn, leans the edge of the seat and goes, 'So do you want to play football?' Rodgers said, and I was like, 'Yeah, I'm interested.' And he said, 'We're going in a different direction at quarterback,' and I was kind of shocked. I'm not shocked because I didn't think it was a possibility. Listen, of course, if they wanted to move that, that's totally fine, but I was shocked because I just flew across the country. You could have told me this on the phone." He's right, they could have told him on the phone, but Karen Rodgers getting released, and Aaron Glenn has done the right thing, and I'm going to tell you why he did the right thing. He's a distraction, Karen is. Aaron Glenn is trying to make himself the man. Okay, he is trying to make himself the leader of that franchise, and you can't have Karen over there disrupting that. That's why their organization is a dumpster fire. They make wrong decisions. Aaron Glenn will put stability in that franchise. So shout out to AG for getting it done. Now, let's get into 5 players from YardBarker that could be trade candidates in their opinion. We're going to start with the first one here. They think Craig Reynolds could be a trade candidate. Simply because the Lions have looked at running backs, and we got Sione Vaki, and of course they're not going to get rid of Montgomery or Gibbs. And by the way, I listened to 97 Won the Ticket, and they were saying the most ridiculous things, that the Lions could get a trade up in the draft to get a running back in the first round or a tight end, and that's absolutely ludicrous. That's not happening. But they actually could trade a Craig Reynolds. But the problem here is with him, does he really have trade value? I don't know. I don't think he has that much trade value. The next player they have is Amik Robertson. I don't see this happening. I literally talked about it before. Don't need to explain myself. Next one they have is Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, in my opinion, will not be traded. He is on a rookie deal. He is cheap. We can have him on 2 more years before you even have to trade or even think about that. We're in a win-now mode. He's a big piece of this offense. He had over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, and he's certifying into a really good wide receiver in the NFL. Why would you do this now? Doesn't make sense. Next player here is Joshua Paschal. Now, this player is interesting because he has not done as good as we expected him to do when we drafted him. He has been lackluster, but the reason I say this will not happen is the Lions' depth at defensive end is cheeks right now. It is not good, and you really do got to rely on Joshua Paschal to be the number 2 because I don't rely on Marcus Davenport to be the number 2. So the Lions have a lot of depth issues here, and so that's the reason why they, in my opinion, wouldn't get rid of him. The depth is a real issue, right? So we got to have those players there. And the final player probably could be, potentially, that's Hendon Hooker. I say no still, but say a team does not get their quarterback. Maybe the Jets don't fully believe in Justin Fields or whatever, right? The Cleveland Browns, the Giants, whoever, they don't get their quarterback. Well, Hendon Hooker can be traded, right? He could be traded there. We do got Allen back up there. I don't think it's going to happen. But of all the players on here, this is probably the most, of all the players potentially to be traded, he would be the most likely. I still don't think any of this will happen. I don't think it'll happen. The Craig Reynolds one and Hendon Hooker would be the most possible because they're probably the least valued. With that said, I still don't see it happening. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think any of these players get traded? Give me your thoughts about the information in the comments below.